Called 7 o'clock. We'll open the North Andover Board of Health meeting for March. This is March 26th, and we're now called to order. Our first order of action is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did we have minutes from the past? We'll just wait on that for now. Okay. So we'll move right into really a communication item. We're not being asked or taking any action on this. This is really an informational presentation for us as the board. We do things together and have a close linkage with GLSD. And they're planning to bring on a new project of organics to energy. And I will not try to delve into this too much. I didn't have time to read the whole background that you sent yesterday, so I'll leave it with you.
I just want to introduce Sherry Cousins and Richard Weir. They're going to do our presentation tonight. Sherry is the executive director at GLSD. Since Rick Hogan retired in the past little over a year. Time flies when you have
January of 2014 I started.
Right. So we're happy to have them here tonight, and I think I'm going to just defer to them to move right forward into talking about GLSD and their project.
All right, great. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank you for inviting Richard and I here tonight to discuss a little bit about GLSD and the project that we're working on. Here's an aerial photo of our facility. We're nestled between the airport in North Andover and the Merrimack River, and it just gives you an idea of our location. GLSD was established by Chapter 750 of the Massachusetts Acts of 1968, and it has been operational since April of 1977. And we serve not only the host community, North Andover, but also the cities of Lawrence and Methuen, Andover, and a portion of Dracut, as well as Salem, New Hampshire. A board of commissioners oversees the operation of GLSD. 3 members represent Lawrence, 2 are from Methuen, and 1 from Andover and another from North Andover. And actually, your commission member is your town manager, Andrew Mailer. And there's 1 non-voting member that represents Salem, New Hampshire. So GLSD has 11 miles of interceptors along the Merrimack and Spigot River. We also have a pump station that, these are sort of big numbers, but we have 2 800 horsepower and 2 1250 horsepower motors. Not quite as big as what MWRA has, but pretty close. Our wastewater treatment plant has a design capacity of 52 million gallons per day, but we usually see about 30 million gallons per day coming through the plant. During wet weather events, and this would be a perfect example of one right now, we're having some snow melt and some rain, we'll see 135 million gallons per day come through within a half hour. It'll go from 30 to 135. So we're always geared and ready for these storm events. We provide primary and secondary treatment as well as chlorination and dechlorination before we discharge to the Merrimack River. Our biosolids are actually processed on site. We have a facility that's owned by GLSD, and it's run by a company named NEFCO, and we produce a fertilizer pellet that's used in Massachusetts for primarily hay fields for agriculture. Just another aerial, maybe I'll point to the screen behind you for this one, if that's okay. I just wanted to orient you a little bit. Yep, I can use this, sure. The flow comes down our driveway, enters a headworks facility. We have not only grit removal, but screenings removal, and then we have 2 primary clarifiers that remove the heavy solids, a biological system that removes the biological oxygen demand, secondary clarifiers, and chlorination tanks. So this is what we call the liquid train. Our separate system here is the biosolids, where we have 3 anaerobic digesters, 4 gravity thickeners, the heat drying facility, and where we actually thicken the sludge before we send it to the heat drying facility for pelletizing. And this is our administration building.
That part, that's the NEFCO activity down there?
NEFCO is right here. Yep.
Again, the building and all the equipment is owned by us. They only do the operations for us.
It's like contract operations. I just want to touch upon some of the energy improvements we've done over the years. We do have a 410 kilowatt solar array that was provided through ERA funding. It saves us about $60,000 a year, and we're eligible for renewable energy credits. So our goal at GLSD is to always reduce our energy use, and we're moving into trying to make our own electricity. So what makes GLSD special, in my opinion, is that we're one of 118 Massachusetts wastewater treatment plants. Of those 118, only 6 have anaerobic digesters. So we already have some existing infrastructure on site that puts us in a better position than other treatment facilities to move forward on certain projects. So back in actually early 2013, we hired CDM Smith to put together a feasibility study to look into whether or not acceptance of organics at the district would be feasible. Did it make financial sense? And the report concluded that yes, it does make financial sense at the Greater Lawrence Sanitary District under many different scenarios.
Our existing digesters do produce, part of the digestion process, it produces methane gas. We presently use the methane gas in the heat drying facility, so it's kind of a, very energy efficient. The steam that comes off of the heat drying facility is sent back to the digesters to heat the sludge. So it's kind of a closed loop there. And one of the things the report not only showed to be a viable project from an economic standpoint, but it also indicated that by the addition of organics to the municipal sludge, it would produce 4 times the amount of methane gas that just regular sludge does. So that was an important component of the report, as well as economics.
Say that again, the addition to organics.
Once you add organic material to the sludge, it produces 4 times the methane gas that just municipal sludge does.
And then walk me through the plus of that of having the more methane gas is that it's
that we'll be able to do the project of making our own electricity, which Sherry will talk about a little later in the slides.
The methane goes into that.
Right, so right now, we use that, we do produce methane on site now, because we have the digesters, and it's used for the heat at the pelletizing facility, heating the facility itself, the digesters, but if we add this additional component to our anaerobic digesters, we'll be producing gas above and beyond that. So a great use for that would be the combined heat and power system, so we'll make electricity and heat on site with that biogas.
And we're going to cover that in the next few slides.
I mean, a couple things I actually neglected to mention earlier on in the presentation is, we're regulated through a NIPDES permit, which is through EPA and DEP, so we're a heavily regulated facility. So that's our discharge is regulated in that manner. And we operate 24 hours a day, every day of the year. We're always staffed. We always have licensed wastewater operators on staff throughout the night and holidays. So it's always operating. The next slide is a picture of our digesters. You can see them in the background, and the gravity thickeners are in the front of the, I just wanted to give you an actual picture of it so you could see it. So former Governor Deval Patrick, and according to my, what I've heard, our new governor, support this organics initiative, moving towards that. As you know, DEP enacted in October of last year that any commercial outfit that's producing more than 1 ton of organic waste a week can no longer send it to a landfill or an incinerator. So it only leaves 2 options. anaerobic digestion, and composting.
So most of your grocery stores would fall in that category, medium to large size restaurants, cafeterias, they would all be producing more.
Hospitals, nursing homes.
Hospitals, nursing homes, exactly. They would all be producing more than a ton of food
1 ton
waste.
per week.
And this picture of the former governor is at a farm, Jordan Farm out in Rutland, Mass, actually, and it's a dairy farm, and what they're doing out there is they're taking the manure from the cows and bringing in liquid food waste, producing biogas and making energy on site, and they're very successful. They've been doing very well with that. So the former governor actually paid them a visit. So, you know, why would we want to move into this why would we be interested in this project? The feasibility study said it makes sense, but like, what does this really boil down to? So as you can see, organic waste going into the digestion process, what do you produce? You can collect tipping fees for the organics that you collect. I shouldn't say collect, because we'll actually have it pre-processed off-site, and it'll be brought in by a tanker in liquid form and offloaded at a receiving station. So we will not be bringing in like garbage trucks and processing it on site. It'll come in a tanker. So we'll be able to collect tipping fees, produce additional biogas for heating and electricity, and then be eligible for renewable energy credits and alternative energy credits. And we've learned quite a bit about that recently, where alternative energy credits are for producing energy on site, which is considered much more efficient than what they consider business as usual, which is getting your power from the local power company. And actually, our contact at DOER, Department of Energy Resources, stated that it's 60% more efficient to make your electricity on site than get it from the grid. So that makes us eligible for these credits. And also the renewable energy credits, which focus on using a renewable source, which would be the biogas, to produce energy, which ordinarily would be a waste product. Now,
So it says, the second one, biogas for heating and processing, that's separate than, is that heating in the plant also? You show electricity for use at the plant. The
yes,
biogas for heating and processing, that's something that can be sold out then?
You could do that. If there was someone nearby, you can transfer hot water to a neighbor if they're close enough. That's something you can do. I mean, we're looking at using the heat on site.
So that heating and processing is still internal use?
Yes, the heating and also the electricity. Now, there may be times where we're producing more electricity than we need at the plant, and that we'll have a net metering agreement with the local electric supplier, and they'll keep track of that, and, you know, we'll be credited accordingly.
The digesters, one of the components of digestion is to have the right temperature, and we need to keep those, the contents of the digesters are on 95 degrees. So obviously uses a lot of methane gas burned by boilers to, right now, to heat the digesters.
So along with all of these wonderful things, there are some additional costs associated with this type of process. So we would see additional costs for digesting it, for solids disposal. You know, the side stream from the digestion process through the centrifuge, okay, that's getting a little bit complicated, but what we'll see coming off the centrifuge might be a little stronger. We'll have to treat that through the system. We might use a little more oxygen to do that. So we'll see some additional O&M costs to treat this, but the positive outweighs the negative.
So the solid processing, that's at the end of the
Yes.
end of the line.
You know, we'll see more solids going through the centrifuges, and we'll see an uptick in solids going to the pelletizing plant as well.
Okay. I missed where the centrifuge comes in, but I'll go along.
That really, it prepares the sludge for the pelletizing plant. It merely removes water from it.
Okay.
It spins it at a high rate. That's all it does. It spins it and removes. I think it goes from
We go,
2% to about 20 to 25% solids. The next slide talks a little bit about the finances. We'll get into a little more detail, but I think this is very interesting. We've worked very hard to acquire grant funding, and Mass Clean Energy Center, not only did they partially fund the feasibility study back in 2013, but they also provided a $400,000 grant towards this project. Mass DEP provided an additional $500,000, and Mass Department of Energy Resources, $5 million, and we got the maximum amount of each grant. So we worked very hard, and that's actually a substantial amount of grant monies for a project of this size. The grant monies will completely pay for the design of this project, and the remainder of the grant monies will go towards the construction. Another avenue we're looking into for grant money is through National Grid, our energy supplier, because we'll be putting the combined heat and power on site. They have incentives for that. A little more detail, in case anyone's interested. So we're estimating the total project cost to be a little over $23 million. Funds, $5.9 million in grant funding, and the potential National Grid grant for the combined heat and power is $3.7 million. The loan payment on this is just over $1.1 million, but that does not include the National Grid incentive because it's not guaranteed yet, so we don't want to put that into the equation. We're looking at increased O&M costs of just under $2 million. So we're looking at spending $3 million for this project, but the revenues and avoided expenses far outweigh the costs. As I mentioned before, we're looking at revenues from tipping fees, AECs, RECs, and avoided power and natural gas costs. So right now, we're expecting to reduce our operating costs a little over $2 million a year. Any questions on that? Because that's a little bit, I changed it a little bit since I was in front of the Board of Selectmen, because I had the avoided expenses under revenues, and they're really not revenues, they're avoided costs.
What are tipping fees like?
We actually were extremely conservative on the tipping fees. We were saying like a penny a gallon. But it should be more than that, but it's still a new market. It hasn't matured.
Is there competition? There's not a lot of this, so you don't have a sense of what the market is going to bear?
We have 3 large companies very interested in providing this bioslurry at this time. We have letters of interest from them stating that they are going to submit proposals. So
you're not, the tipping fee that isn't to, you said a grocery store. The grocery store takes the waste to one of these bioslurry makers, and then the bioslurry will come to you. So it's kind of a 3-step process.
Right.
So, yeah, you're essentially correct. What the preprocessor will do is will remove any of the plastics or, materials that might be in that. If it's packaged material, they'll remove the packaging. They'll grind it up. They'll add a water content to it to get it to the right percentage of solids that we're looking for. They'll pump it into a tanker truck and then bring it to us.
And the RFQP specifies in great detail what the BTU value has to be of this bioslurry. It's actually, it's quite impressive, really. It has to be within a certain pH range. It has to have, the oil and grease cannot exceed a certain amount. So it has to meet a specification, and it'll be checked.
I noticed that the grants are about 25% of the capital cost. Without the grants, is the project cost effective?
I still think it is.
Really?
The tipping fee would have to be higher to make it a break-even project. But certainly, and that's one of the components of the proposals is not only are they going to provide the technical information, their financial capabilities, and other things to assure us that they'll be able to meet our specification. But they'll also be offering a tipping fee. So
That'll be part of the selection criteria.
exactly.
So if we feel 2 are equal and one's offering 5 cents and another one's 6, we're going to go with the one offering 6 cents. Yeah.
Also, going back to a much earlier slide, the facility is primary, secondary treatment. Any thoughts of upgrading to tertiary treatment, or just going to stay primary, secondary?
Well, that's really up to the regulators. And we are seeing a move towards nutrient removal. So I would expect in the next round of permits or the one after that, that we will see some nutrient limits. And that's another reason why we want to move ahead with this project, because it will free up money to do additional capital projects.
You also said that the maximum capacity is, what, 135 million gallons a day, something?
That's what it is right now, but we're actually increasing it.
Now,
What if you have 5 inches of rain? Will you have to bypass some of the influence of the plant?
What would happen if we have an extreme rain event? Right now, we're maxed out at 135 MGD. We're actually embarking on another project that will increase our pump station's capacity to 165 MGD. So, but to answer your question, if we overload the interceptors and the pump station is at its maximum capacity, we do have combined sewer overflows, which discharge directly into the Merrimack River. It's our intent to reduce those, minimize those, and move away from that. But it is something that still happens. The city of Lawrence is a combined system. All of their stormwater comes to GLSD. So, you know, I think they are making progress towards reducing it, and they're trying to tighten up their system, but it's so expensive to separate sewers in a heavily populated, very dense city such as Lawrence, and that was actually looked into, and we do have a long-term control plan that was put together in 2010, and it looked into the cost of Lawrence doing that versus GLSD making capital improvements to take more flow. And it was, the magnitude, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but the magnitude to do the separation was 10 times or more than doing upgrades at the plant.
In 2000, the plant only would accept 110 MGD, and as Sherry was saying, part of the long-term control plan that we were required to submit to DEP on how would we reduce these overflows to the river during these rain events. We embarked on a project that increased the flow and treatment capacity at the treatment plant to 135 MGD. And we're now embarking on the second phase of that increase that will allow us to go up to 165 MGD, thereby reducing the amount of occurrences of combined sewer overflow events, as well as the amount of volume that would be going to the river. So instead of doing separation, it was a lot more cost effective, as Sherry said, 10, probably 20 times more cost effective to send more flow to the treatment plant and treat it than to let it, than to separate the sewers.
And overall, what they call the capture, what we actually accept and treat versus the CSOs, I think it's 99%.
Yes.
98 or 99%. So along the Merrimack River, we actually treat the most wastewater that's coming through the system out of any of the plants. So we're in good shape right now, but we're always trying to get better. So the project that's currently in preliminary design, we're expecting the preliminary design report middle of April, is to add a 4th digester, cogeneration engines to produce electricity from the additional biogas treatment, because it does need certain items, the siloxanes, hydrogen sulfide should be removed before it goes through a reciprocating engine, so you have to do a little bit of treatment. We're looking at additional biogas storage and a receiving station for those tanker trucks that will be offloading the bioslurry. Oh, I said that, yeah. Any questions on that?
The flow process here, except for at the end, you make methane and obviously energy, but the flow is separate than the water, correct? The bioslurry goes through a separate...
The bioslurry would actually be mixed with the solids we normally would put into the digester, so it would be mixed and then sent to the digesters. So it would be separate from the liquid train, it would just be in the biosolids part of the plant, and we would mix it. It's always better to have a well-mixed product going into the digestion process.
So currently the water, sewer water comes in here,
Yes,
goes that way.
Right.
So these, that's where the trucks will go with the bioslurry.
it'll go
and
into
they'll
mix,
add into,
right.
It's not added into the liquid train.
No,
at all.
it's completely separate. It'll go into underground storage tanks in this area and sent into the digestion process, just as it is now. But it'll be mixed with the primary and the secondary solids.
Well, what we do now is the solids that are in the primary treatment plant, primary tanks, and the secondary tanks, what settles out there is then sent to the gravity thickener tanks.
okay, so the water goes here and then.
The water goes through there.
To the
Any,
river.
any of the settled
Solids
sludge,
come out and go that way.
Right.
That's correct.
Right, right.
So then in these tanks, you said there's a bioslurry that has so much water in it.
It actually would be a very thick material, about
Okay.
12-13% solid, so it'll be pretty thick.
And so then that will be digested and created into the more
exactly.
compact, okay.
Okay.
Next.
Sure. So we recently visited a fairly local plant in Lewiston, Auburn, Maine. They recently added a digester.
They didn't have one in Palm Beach or something you could go?
That would have been nice this winter, wouldn't it? Yeah. I should have looked a little harder. So in the fall, actually, Richard, myself, and part of our operations staff, as part of a biosolids conference, we visited this facility. So they added a digester, actually two digesters. They added cogeneration facilities, which are in, a small building with noise abatement. It's basically like a muffler. It does not require a stack. We have a biosolids and biogas storage tank, which is that bubble, a gas conditioning building, and then the digester equipment building is in the center. So, we're looking at a similar arrangement where we'll be adding, the cogen, gas conditioning, and potentially some additional gas storage in one more digester. And they're having very good luck, actually. They are saving, and they're much, they're a smaller plant, but they're saving $200,000 a year on electricity right now. And they do have net metering. And the cogens that are used, these are pictures of Lewiston Auburn's cogeneration engines. They're very similar to what a hospital would use for a cogen engine.
Generation electricity, standby generators. It'd be similar.
They're compact, they're quiet. I'm all set. So our schedule right now, as I mentioned, we're working on the design. It'll be finished by the end of this year. One of the requirements that Mass DEP has is, in order to be eligible for low-interest loans for the construction aspect, we actually have to submit plans and specifications by October of this year. We're looking to receive bids from contractors the beginning of next year and be in construction by March of next year. So we will be doing a pilot program, which initially was going to be earlier on, but we moved it later into the program when we have some additional facilities to receive the material, mix the material, and add it to the digestion. So we're looking at a pilot program between March and April of 2016. And we're hoping to produce our own electricity and additional heat April of 2018. I did mention this, I touched upon it, but we do have the RFQP that's out now in draft form. We're accepting comments and questions at this time. It'll be out in final form, and we are accepting the proposals. I believe they're due by May 18th. This RFQP will outline the truck route, when delivery trucks can come, and the quality of the bioslurry. So this is our proposed route. We've discussed it with the town administrator, with the board. This seems to be the acceptable route. It would be right off 495 down Sutton Street and a left onto basically our driveway, which is Charles Street. So it's a half mile from 495 to turning onto Charles Street. And we are working on amending the host agreement with North Andover to provide some funding for road improvements. Because we do realize that additional truck traffic would necessitate.
Is there an exit?
So depending if they're coming from the north or the south, they can come from north or south and get off at that exit and go down Sutton Street. So we're not going to allow any truck traffic through North Andover, like through the center of town. It won't be allowed. That will be the designated truck route, and it'll be enforced.
So going back out, if they have to go south, they have to go around the loop and.
They'll have to go
Yeah.
around,
By Concord.
which I do every day on my way home.
Which you do everything, yeah.
Yeah, they go back out.
Right.
They'll have to do that loop.
Right.
But, trucks do it. I see heavy trucks on the bridge. It shouldn't be an issue.
And you gave an estimate of what size are these trucks and how
So
many do they have?
depending on the company that provides the bioslurry, they're between 6,000 and 8,000 gallon trucks.
Basically the same size truck that you would see that feeds gas to a gas station, those type of trucks.
Or maybe even a little smaller. It really depends on the company. Any questions about the truck route? Any concerns about that? I mean, we actually feel lucky that we're that close to a main highway because most treatment plants are not that close. So,
And most of your providers would be coming right from 495, they're not
Well,
coming up 114.
it'll be a
coming
requirement. They'll
the
have
other
to,
way.
they'll have to
The
go that
requirement
way.
is
Unlike the septic truck.
not only
Right.
Sutton Street, but also to use 495, only.
And that's at the end of downtown, so I guess you may have to think a little bit about timing and so on. I'm just not sure there's not really much of a rush hour down there, but,
Well, I have had some discussions with the town administrator. Nothing's been decided. I mean, we'll work with the town. If the town wants more truck traffic when it's busy anyways, we can do that. If you want to spread out the truck traffic, we can do that as well. I think the companies will, we'll try to work with the town and GLSD to, have the least impact on the town.
I think doesn't it cross a railway?
Yes.
in there?
Yes, it does.
And that's going to need some upgrade in there. I mean, that street is kind of,
I think the town is planning on paving that in the next year or two, is what they told us. Isn't that right?
I did hear that. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to happen, and like I said, the host agreement will provide monies towards resurfacing that road more often than maybe you would normally.
Right, so the host agreement will take care of things like truck routes or anything else that the town might be looking for, that Andrew might work with. We don't regulate this type of waste, so it won't be through any of our existing regulations, so.
Nobody can ask for a
It's not-
variance, so they can take a different route, not like what we do now with trash trucks.
We don't even have a regulation regarding it.
No.
It's not considered solid waste.
But I mean, we want to be good neighbors.
Right, that's why. you just
That's
work
why we're
with-
here tonight.
with the selectmen. You don't need us to do that.
Right, I mean, I think we can make it work for the community and for GLSD, and so we always end all of our presentations with this slide because she's so cute. It's Richard's granddaughter. So, I mean, as I mentioned before, producing energy on site is more, much more efficient than business as usual, getting it from the grid. Our contact at the Department of Energy Resources stated that this project will save over 1 million gallons of gasoline, which equates to filling 70,000 cars, and this will reduce GLSD's carbon footprint. Another excellent point about this project is, by producing our own electricity on site, we'll be resilient. If the grid goes down, GLSD's still running, serving the communities. So that's another huge bonus with this project. Any questions or comments?
are you ahead of the curve in Massachusetts even on planning this?
So MWRA had been working on starting a pilot program. There are other facilities, such as the dairy farm in Rutland, that, so there are places taking in more like a liquid food waste, not like at a 12 or 13% concentration, but a thinner concentration. It's still fairly new in Massachusetts, but I actually brought a document to share with you. I think Susan might have.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I distribute it?
That was what you emailed out.
Yeah. Now you have your own hard copy. I told them not to print it out if they didn't need it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good read, it'll put you right to sleep.
These 40 pages, I read this earlier. It is 40, but this is the one, not the whole thing.
We've been in contact with a larger facility than we are in LA, not Lewiston, Auburn, but Los Angeles, that has been doing the same thing we're going to be doing for about the last year. I'm not sure if are they listed in that? I don't think they are, but it's not new. It's been done for years in Europe. Seems like Europe always gets on board with new technologies before the U.S. does. So in the U.S. it's somewhat new, but
if
there
you
are facilities out there that are doing this.
I mean, if you do have a chance even to scan that, it's an EPA report from last September, and it basically lists 6 different facilities from around the country. 3 are in California, 2 I think are in Wisconsin, 1 in Indiana, and they're all producing electricity on site to different degrees using, some have reciprocating engines, some have microturbines, but they're all having great successes. And one of the questions that they were all asked were, if you were to do this again, would you bother doing this? And they all said absolutely they would. So I really think this is a great opportunity for GLSD, and we are a little bit ahead of the curve for Massachusetts, which puts us in a very good position to get that material and to get into a contract with a company and make sure we have it for the next 5-10 years, and without any doubt. So
GLSD's engines, will they produce enough electricity to provide the total demands for GLSD?
yes,
Really?
Yes.
we're looking. Go
We're-
ahead, Richard.
We're basically going to, our goal is to be off the grid. Obviously, we will still need to be on the grid for certain times when the demand is such. When the demand is low, we will be able to profess to be off the grid. One of the things that we're looking at to try, not looking at, but one of the things that's going to be happening here is, as you probably know, the cost of electricity is going to go up. Right now, our electric bill is about $2.5 million a year. And with towards the end of the year, when our contract with the electric supplier is up, we'll have to negotiate a new one. A lot of the other plants around the state are paying more now, and based on what we hear, their rates are, our electricity could go up to $3 million a year without this project. So we look at it as not only a project that that is a green project that will save the member communities money because of the avoided electric costs. And with the new regulations that will probably be coming down for advanced treatment, we really need to be at the cutting edge of trying to find ways of saving money so that we can afford without shocking our member communities with additional fees because of additional treatment costs that might be coming up ahead, dictated by DEP and EPA.
And any additional electricity that you have, you can sell to the grid.
Right.
At, what is it, like 10 cents a kilowatt hour?
It's
right now?
close to retail. It's close to.
National Grid is 16 cents a kilowatt hour.
Wow.
Yeah, it's $160 a megawatt hour.
Wow.
A lot of money. But they're going down as of, I think, May 15th.
Yep. They are. It's kind of a seasonal thing.
Yeah.
But the projections are, for next winter, is to be quite a bit higher, too. So, right
It
now,
really doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's
It's
based
hard to
upon the
say.
futures of fuel, but, you know, right now, I mean, it's created fossil fuels in the United States.
Right.
I think we're around 8 cents a kilowatt that we're paying.
Right,
and
about 8.5 cents a
some of the other treatment facilities in the state that we're aware of just renegotiated their contracts. They were around 8, and now they're going to be around 11, 12, you know, on a long-term contract.
It's good money.
You started to touch on, I want to say, put on my municipal hat, or if I were a commissioner, I mean, I understand, it's great, the green and the savings and the sort of the big picture, but to the commissioner-level communities, I was going to, if you go, I see the second or the third slide where you showed numbers, the electricity aside, how does that translate back to a financial or otherwise benefit to the commissioner communities?
If we're not producing electricity,
Well, the savings aside,
yes.
doing this as a project here, does this, to sort of put down to the base question, does this help me as a citizen in North Andover to have less sewer cost? Sort of relate it back to the citizen in North Andover.
Well, my hope is, because I know this is going to happen, our plant will be expected to treat the wastewater to a higher degree. It's just a matter of time. So my hope is that this project will temper any increases. We have to stay within Proposition 2.5. I want to always be able to stay within that. So in my opinion, this project will allow us to be able to make improvements without coming to the towns and saying, we need to go above Prop 2.5. So it'll keep
Our sewer rates are,
your sewer, see, it's a little bit different. GLSD has to stay within 2.5, but I'm sure North Andover, Andover, and the other communities probably work out of enterprise funds. So your rate could probably go up 8%, 10%,
yeah, I was going to say, what, no,
but we have to stay within 2.5.
well, your
We do.
budget, your,
We cannot, one year to the next, we cannot assess our communities more than 2.5% from the year before. So when DEP or EPA or both of them come to us and say, you need to do this improvement, whether it's for CSO abatement or nutrient removal, in order to be able to afford those projects, this type of project is going to help with that.
on this, by this $2 million, the bottom line number there.
Because every year, it'll cost more to provide electricity and gas to the plant. So that cost is only going to go up over time, too. So this is, it'll basically take that right out of the equation, the volatility.
But what you, but I'm not, I don't want to.
No, that's fine, I want to make sure you understand.
If you're, so that, let's call it the operating budget of GLSD is restricted by Prop 2.5?
What we
more or
can,
less.
what we can assess the communities
Okay.
year to year, right, have to stay within 2.5%.
So then, how would, if you're required to add something above and beyond, like you said, that doesn't fit within that 2.5, then how does that financially, if you didn't do this, how would that be a financial effect on the assessments to the towns?
They would go up. And actually, what would happen is if we had to do a project and we couldn't afford it within our 2.5% increase, we would have to go to each Board of Selectmen and get approval. So our local board, the GLSD board, would have to approve it with a majority, or actually maybe even supermajority vote, and then each member community. So it would be extremely difficult to get that to pass.
Okay.
So a lot of other districts don't have the financial restrictions that GLSD does. We're one of the first districts formed after the Clean Water Act, and we're right around that time. Subsequent districts have more leeway, but we actually don't have a lot of ways of keeping money aside for future projects and things like that, so.
Okay.
Any other questions?
You think that 2018 in operation is pretty realistic?
I think it is.
Sounds like a lot of work.
I think it is, though. I think when you get a contractor on site, they work fast. They do.
This waste ban just started last fall. And so companies are looking to figure out who has to remove this, who meets the 1 ton per week. And there's a lot of guidance on the DEP website to help generators to figure that out. There's calculations for colleges and things like that. And
So where's all this going now, then?
so there's the question, so it must be just at the beginning now, so it's going to be ramping up while you're building.
There hasn't been a lot of
but
enforcement.
where is it going now?
I've been
Yeah.
told.
Yeah,
Composting
no,
mostly.
Some
there's
of
not a lot
it's going to
enforcement.
composting.
Right.
Some of it's probably slipping through the,
Right.
through the regulatory web, if you will. Once we get on board, MWRA is still looking into doing something like this. I think once there's a outlet for all the material that would be diverted, I think probably DP is going to start enforcing that.
I gave you all a fact sheet on food waste composting, so it gives you a lot of sidebar, data on, how much the DEP is looking to, for their solid waste plan, reductions, and how much right now, 25% of the waste stream is has accounted by food waste. I mean, it's a huge amount. And also, they've had to work with boards of health, so how this works, as affects us is boards of health have worked with DEP on protocols, and I put that in your packet as well, as how we're going to work with the companies that have to now separate it, store it, transport it, so to help them. And they, the DEP's got all kinds of things on who hauls. I mean, they put in a law, and now they have to create the infrastructure almost after it. You've got to get the people interested in hauling it, get the people interested in processing it, and get the people interested in the far end. So it's kind of interesting.
Right. And
how
that's really what it's been, who's going to make the move first?
What if you do nothing? Where is it
Right.
going to go? And GLSD has the opportunity of maybe taking 25% of this total that DEP is looking to take out of the waste stream. It's a huge project.
We said of all the wastewater treatment plants in Massachusetts, only 6 already have an anaerobic that could be basically upgraded to do this. Are there other kinds of places, or it's pretty much going to be those 6 that will choose to upgrade or not? That's why you have such an advantage?
Right, well, we actually, and the other good thing is we have some existing capacity within our 3 digesters now, and that's how we'll be able to do the pilot program, because, so we're gonna start the pilot program with our existing system while the construction starts, but, right, the existing, MWRA is one, we're one, I'm trying to think who else has digesters, I can't think off the top of my head right now, but, so they may or may not even have existing capacity within their digesters, so they might have to upgrade the facility. And, I mean, there could be some treatment plants that will add a digester, but at this time, there isn't much activity with that because of the huge capital expenditure.
The fact that we already have 3 digesters kind of puts us in a good position because of the
Right.
cost required.
You don't have to add a whole new level of
Right. It's
support
there,
or
it's just adding on.
infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're actually, I think GLSD is, the communities are very fortunate that the infrastructure's there already.
Enough space for it, right?
And we have plenty of space
It's right there.
along the Merrimack.
Any other
So,
questions?
Great.
No, it was good.
and we'd be happy to come back, as things progress, if we have updates or anything, or if you have questions, contact me, and we'd be happy to answer.
Give tours of the facility.
Yes, we do.
What was the last time you were? It was a number of years
was-
ago.
Quite some time ago.
Yeah?
It's still-
You're welcome to.
remember I did it
I'll
with-
leave you my
with
card
John
and
and
call me. We can set up a tour.
It's a while.
You're welcome to come.
Did I take a tour with you guys, or did I do it with,
We went to TBI when they, before
Yeah.
they opened.
Okay.
I do it-
I didn't go to
Years ago.
GLS.
So it's
With
been
us
a
still,
while
or-
then, neither-
I don't even know if it was
years
with
ago.
we
Well,
did it
we're
as a
under
board.
construction
I
now,
think I
so
did it with
you'll have to wear a hard hat and a vest, but we'll
your
provide
sheets
them for
before
you.
guys.
Did you hear that? Gotta wear a hard hat and vest if you go while they're in the construction.
Yeah.
Well, we can provide the protective equipment while you're on site, but we'd be happy to have you visit the facility, and we'll take you around and show you the existing construction and where the proposed construction would happen. So,
Thank you very much.
all right, thank you for having
I
us.
appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
For the late Yeah, there's some interesting other types of projects at them, what other places are doing with their ways. Not everything is going here, some are figuring out other ideas, different restaurants, how much they've, so
Well,
you
this
can go
is
to all
what
these
other
websites.
sources are doing with
Yeah.
this stuff.
Yeah. So
That's under
you go to
the-
that website and then click on this Harvard case study, Northampton, supermarkets, State Street case studies, on how they've reduced their food waste, so in different ways. So some supermarkets are going to be doing their own processing, take it back and go have their own little digesters. I've heard of that.
In the back of the parking lot?
No. At one common place. It might be Stop and Shop. Might be doing that. They might be in the case study.
Sounds pretty cool on this. I mean, benefiting at the front end and get benefit at the back end. And
We'll see you again.
okay,
Thank you very much.
good.
Thank you. Nice to meet both of you.
Good luck.
Sounds like it's a mechanical form of gastroenterologist. We analyze, we do. That's it.
It's a colon.
Yeah, it's a giant colon. Thank you.
Sure.
Very good job.
Thank you.
Susan, do you have one?
I'm all set.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
You too. Good.
I wonder what the selectmen, I should ask what the selectmen questioned them about. I'm sure they didn't question about the
I'm
food.
sure you can
and-
look back at their meetings when they attended and watch them on the CAM, North Andover CAM. You can click on any meeting. I know they, had initially gone with the idea, and then when they've kind of hashed it out a bit, they went back, talked about she mentioned how they changed the pilot program to kind of a little bit later in the process and all that. But, yeah,
What they're doing, it's going to save us money in the long run, what they're doing.
yeah. But of course, as the host community, we do have thoughts and concerns.
Yeah, you have to just
So
watch,
that's
but
why
they
we
seem
have
to
a
have
town
thought a lot
manager.
of things through, so,
Very much so.
That's why we have a town manager on the board, so it works out.
good.
Did you want to do your minutes?
Let's do our minutes. So you have before you, Larry, I think, the minutes from January 22nd.
I do, and I've read them over.
All right, a motion to accept then?
Motion to, let me just get them out first. Where are they? Oh, here they are. Make a motion to accept the North Andover Board of Health meeting minutes, Thursday, January 22nd, 2015.
Second?
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. I think there are two, that's another copy.
It's easier with three. But she can voice.
Oh, yeah.
She knows it's one or the other.
All right, next item of business is again under communications and discussion. I asked for, and I don't think this will be an extensive conversation, but we now have revised, rehashed, and renewed tobacco sales regulations, which were in effect essentially 8 weeks ago from February 2. So we thought maybe just
Right,
sort of give us a little
Ron Beauregard.
update of how things are coming along.
Ron from Healthy Communities has written a small memo on his travels. He's been to all 20, I believe we put it in your packet.
Oh.
If not, I'll get it for you, but he inspected all 20, is it not in there? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. And for the 3 new provisions, single cigars, the flavored tobacco and the blunt wraps. And his statement is that in his opinion, all the stores demonstrated good faith, seeking compliance with the provisions. He apologizes he couldn't be here tonight, he had to be at another community. And anywhere that he did see any, one or another prohibited item, maybe sometimes definitions were hard to figure out of what was prohibited, they promptly removed them without any question. So he thought it was valuable to get to every store, to speak to everyone there, and he will be following up on that, and he's very optimistic with the compliance and their willingness to comply as as a whole. So that's good.
Well, and this is the sign that we talked about. We talked about a combined
Right.
sign, so this is,
Right, that was the sign that put everything on one piece. Hopefully it has everything that you wanted.
great.
Good.
So instead of 3 signs.
Right. Yeah. But I was happy he was able to get to all of them, so he could get you that information. And I've had no inquiries, no feedback, negative or, they just seem to be doing what they need to do.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I know, you never knew what it was, all the changes, how the retailers would feel.
For those that may be listening, several relatively major changes that we had made to the regulations, the tobacco regulations. We included e-cigarettes. And we're ahead of the curve on that. The state is just discussing that right now. And we also excluded these flavors that are added to some tobacco-related products, primarily, if not solely, to attract the kids. And it's interesting. I've done a lot of reading about tobacco lately. 90% of people that are addicted to tobacco-related products smoke before they're 18 years old. And that's something that I know that we're going to talk about as time goes on, possibly increasing the age from 18 to 21. It certainly has merit. I have voluminous information. This is not the time to discuss because several of our members are not here right now. But nevertheless, it does warrant further consideration. They're doing it right now in, I believe, Andover, I believe Lawrence, and I'm sure that as time goes on, other communities will do the same. Personally, what people do that are adults, smoking is it's none of most anyone's business. But kids is a different story. 90% of those that are addicted started to smoke before they're 18 years old. 99% started to smoke before they're 26 years old. So let's make it a little bit harder for those kids between 18 and 21. I'm not sure about people in the military. That will warrant further discussion, but this is a quick review of certainly items that we may want to look at going forward.
As it happens, at the end of last year, when we were in the midst of our conversation about these revised tobacco regulations, we were approached by a pediatrician at Children's Hospital who's spearheading the, it's called Smoke 21, is that, I forget the name of the project, sort of popularizing or promoting this idea of raising the sales age to 21. We were kind of in the midst of many other things, and I felt that would maybe be a little bit
Too much.
a little bit too much to kind of get this board through that.
Yeah.
But I think given how well this went over and the fact that there's been so little pushback, that we could ask him to come up to one of our next couple of meetings. He's made himself available. Obviously, it would depend on schedules and so on, but he could come up and talk about perspectives of what they're talking about and provide a measured review and approach to it, and make some suggestions to us. I'm sure he would want to look at, and when you look at this healthy community list, like you say, I've seen various things in papers and talked to people. It sort of seems like different things are happening in different communities and different levels, different changes are happening. So I wonder, rather than moving into that too quickly, if someone like him is sort of pulling together some of the best practices that are happening here and might come in, rather than in a month, but in, I'm not trying to put anything off, but he would kind of come and say, here's where some of these best practices are happening that statewide seem to be coalescing into the promotion of health type approach. But his primary initiative is the age 21 sales restriction. So if the board is open to it, we could have him come up in the next month or two. We had sort of put together a little bit of an agenda over the next couple months But I think we probably wouldn't want him to come up and have a public hearing and sort of do it all in that meeting. We want to hear what he has to say, but whatever he has to say, we can still digest it ourselves as a board and maybe sit on it for a little while like we did before and think it through. But I don't have any agenda in where to push this or what direction to go. I think this is all good things we're talking about, so.
It's interesting to know, too, is that, well, suppose a Board of Health did not want to stop at 21, say, 26. What's the difference between, say, age 21 to buy tobacco products and 26? No difference. The big difference is between 18 and 21. That's it. That's it. So very interesting. Even if the facts are a little bit skewed, the point is that it can be disastrous when kids get access to tobacco-related products. They're addicted, often for life.
So maybe we can, if you're thinking, maybe we should look at June and then kind of do what we did last year, mull over the summer, and if you wanted to have something, or was that too far out? Yeah, May? Check the availability, see what he's...
I can email him and see kind of where he is, where his group is right now in terms of this. If they're still focused really on the one thing, we can have him come up in a month and talk about it. And if that's kind of the main thrust of where the benefit seems to be coming, especially given the other things we've put into effect, I think that's, we don't need to sit on it either. I don't want to wait just to wait. I can ask him what his suggestion might be.
That'd be good.
I can email him next week. He replied to my email pretty quickly and see what he says.
It's fine.
Next month is April, so we'll be a different week because of school vacation. So we'll just, I think that would be
What is it? What's next
The
month?
date?
What's the day? Because of school vacation.
yeah, it'd be on the 16th, I believe.
That's too bad.
16th. Good to know.
Is that not right? Did we move it to the 30th, actually, on my calendar, at the police department, April the 30th?
Yes, that's what it is. Because the week before that, I think they're on vacation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the 20th is the vacation week, so we have it the week after, it's on the 30th.
And it's the police station.
So I think that would be something we'd want to be pretty sure we could all be there, right? Do you have a travel schedule in place?
I might not be able to make it, I'm not sure.
So let me know.
Yeah.
I'll say we'd like him to be in the next couple months,
Yeah.
because I think,
Maybe hold the space and check the schedule.
yeah.
Might have to work in Florida.
Oh, no. I couldn't have done that now. That was cool.
I'll ask him, say we'd like him to come up in the next month or two, depending on coalescence of all our schedules. Okay, very good. Anything, I'm not trying to cut you off, anything else? Okay. Are there any other discussion items that we should bring up, or anything that we've missed?
I think so. Deborah's still intending on doing something with Lyme. She's going to a conference first thing in May, and she's just kind of working through it, but it's still on her list. She hasn't forgotten. So
Okay.
as we enter into the season of getting out into the pools
Yeah,
and
pools.
camps, and all those are coming.
Yeah, pools and camps starting
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah, so all those are
Imagine
going
that.
out. Septic season starting, everything starts, believe it or not, with the snow. So, moving right along.
Okay, great. Motion to close?
Make a motion to close?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.